What if I told you that there's a hidden thread that connects something as simple as a paper bag to the design of an entire city? Well, in this explainer, we're going to follow that thread. We're going to explore a really powerful way of seeing how our world is shaped, from the smallest personal moments all the way up to the largest systems around us. So, yeah, it sounds a little bit like a riddle, right? But the answer, it unlocks a whole new way of looking at the world. And by the end of this, you won't just know the answer, you'll actually have a practical toolkit for interpreting and maybe even shaping your own reality. Okay, so our journey starts at the smallest scale possible. It starts with you. This first section is all about what I like to call the art of getting lost, how your own personal lens shapes the way you learn, see, and find your own unique path through all the noise out there. We're often taught that learning is about, well, compliance. You follow a curriculum, you get the right answers, but real learning, the kind that actually sticks, that's about agency. It's about giving yourself permission to explore, to follow your curiosity, even when you have no idea where it's going. It's supposed to be messy and nonlinear, and yeah, deeply personal. This leads us to this fascinating concept from a designer named Kenya Hara. He calls it X-formation, and he actually coined it to be the opposite of information. See, information is about knowing things, but X-formation, that's about realizing just how much you don't know. It's that aha moment you get when you wander off the map and just embrace the uncertainty. And this is the crucial part right here. Harari's quote, it just gets right to the heart of it. Acknowledging the vastness of your own ignorance isn't some kind of weakness. It's the real starting point for genuine discovery. The second you get comfortable with being lost, the path forward just starts to reveal itself. It's pretty cool. And listen, this isn't just some abstract idea. This whole way of thinking was actually born in a moment of pure inspiration. Two educators were on a walk, just full of ideas and questions, and they grabbed the only thing they had, a paper bag, and just started mapping out their conversation. They captured all the twists, the turns, the connections, the whole messy, beautiful process of thinking together. So that single moment, it inspired an entire practice. The whole idea is to capture your learning journey, but the nonlinear version. You pay attention to what's grabby, those things that fascinate you for reasons you can't quite put your finger on. And the goal isn't to make art. It's to build a thinking studio for yourself, a space that really values the process of discovery over some perfect final outcome. So let me ask you this as we move on. When was the last time you just explored something, a topic, a neighborhood, an idea, with absolutely no goal, no deadline, no expected outcome, just for the sake of the journey itself? So that personal journey of discovery, that's step one. Now let's zoom out a little bit to the community level. Because once we find something that's meaningful to us, what's our next impulse? A lot of the time, it's to share it, to build a conversation and shape understanding with other people. Okay, think about the difference between a giant warehouse full of books and, say, a small independent bookstore. One is a repository, basically a massive database. But the other, that's an act of curation. Curation isn't just about collecting stuff. It's about arranging it to create an experience, to tell a story, to spark a conversation. A fantastic example is a bookstore that displays its books cover forward, almost like an art gallery. By constantly changing the selection based on what the readers are actually interested in, they transform the store from just a place to buy things into a dynamic dialogue with the whole community. And this leads to this really powerful dynamic that design researchers call a culture of proximity. This is what happens when you bring people together around a shared interest or project. They stop being passive consumers, and they actually start becoming active participants. They're co-creating the value and the meaning of the experience itself. And you know what? Once you start looking for this, you see it everywhere. A Reddit thread where thousands of people are sharing and debating their favorite books. That's a perfect example. Or think about a museum that invites the local community to help design an exhibit. In both cases, a community is working together, curating and building shared knowledge. All right, now for the final zoom out. We've gone from the personal to the communal. Now we're looking at the macro, societal scale. How these very same principles of seeing and interpreting and shaping are used to design the world that we all live in. So this brings us to a huge point. Design is a much, much bigger word than we usually think. Just look at this diagram. On the left, you see design starting with simple things, symbols and objects, like a logo or a chair. But as you move to the right, it scales way up to include entire systems, like how you interact with a service or how a city's entire transit network is planned. Design is shaping our reality at every single level. And this kind of systems-level thinking, this is how we tackle our biggest challenges. This diagram, for example, it shows how a city might approach a huge problem. It starts by framing the problem, by actually talking to people. Then it breaks down massive issues like air quality and traffic into smaller, measurable parts. This is how you design solutions at a huge societal scale. And really, the best way to do this is through something called co-design. It's a simple but pretty radical idea. The people who are going to be affected by a design, whether it's a new park, a piece of software, or a community service, they should be actively involved in creating it. It brings that personal lens and that community lens right into the macro-level process. I love this slide because it shows the incredible range of what design really is. On the left, you've got a deeply personal object, a handcrafted walking stick. And on the right, a massively complex system, a digital knowledge landscape for researchers. So what connects them? Both are fundamental human acts of taking information, making sense of it, and shaping it into something new for the world. And that brings us to this really powerful idea from educator Olivia Goudet. This belief that we can shape our world, that our actions actually matter. That isn't just a design principle, it's really the foundation of a functioning democratic society. It's the belief in our own agency. So where does this all leave us? Well, all these ideas, from getting lost on purpose to co-designing a city, they're not just interesting concepts. They are a practical toolkit, a new way of seeing that empowers you to become a more active participant in the world around you. So here it is, your new toolkit. It all starts with you, embracing the unknown and noticing what you find grabby. Then it moves outward, curating and sharing what you find with other people. And finally, it scales all the way up, seeing the hidden systems that design our world, and realizing that you have the power to co-create and to change them. Which brings us all the way back to our original question. What does a paper bag have in common with a city? Well, the answer is human agency. That same impulse to see, interpret, and shape meaning that led to a conversation being mapped on a paper bag, that's the very same impulse, just scaled up, that designs the cities we live in. At the end of the day, it's all about our ability to shape reality. So, the final question isn't for me to answer, it's for you. The world is a product of countless design decisions, both big and small. Now that you have the toolkit to see them a little more clearly, how will you participate? How will you help shape it?